Hello everyone, this is Pal Ponder on Weather coming at you with another video. In today's update, we're going to be talking about Tropical Storm Zeta that looks to have impacts for places like Jamaica, into the Cayman Islands, as well as Cuba, and then eventually into the southeast coast of the US. So before I do get started, if you do like weather-related content, please subscribe to my channel, as I will upload about 5 videos a week to keep you updated. And I do ask you to share this video with your friends and family that looks to maybe impacted from this storm. So let's kind of delve into the details. What we're looking at right now is the National Hurricane Center has really upgraded this system to a 90% chance of development. The hurricane hunters are going to be flying into the system later on this afternoon, but basically we have a broad area of low pressure just south of the Grand Cayman Islands. There's a lot of showers and storm activity developing around there, and there's looks to be a tropical depression that will likely form later on this afternoon or tomorrow. This system will move near the western parts of Cuba by Sunday, and then they will just kind of slowly drift into the Gulf of Mexico and possibly going into the southeast coast of the U.S. later on early next week. But places looks to be impacted are like the Cayman Islands, Jamaica, Cuba, and into Florida, as well as the southeast coast, and then Bahamas on the outskirts. So this whole area of interest will be under the gun on high alert potential impacts from this system. So let's kind of look at the overall satellite picture as this morning. Here's the flare up around what is now Invest 95L. This is basically south of the Grand Cayman Islands. This is where the potential center will develop, but there's a lot of flare up just all around it. All this area has what they call Central American gyra. A lot of thunderstorms activity bubbling around it. Here's the Yucatan. So there's storms forming around Cozumel this morning, the Playa del Carmen into Cancun, definitely the Cayman Islands, and even into Jamaica, where I do expect you to have impacts today and tomorrow from this system, with some very heavy rain coming in from the south side and going over the island this afternoon with some torrential rain. So definitely be on the lookout for that. I wanted to give you guys a heads up, because here's the latest guidance. Like I mentioned, this is Invest 95L. And here's the latest Euro model and the latest GEFS ensemble member model. The last couple of days, the Euro model has been basically non-existent from this storm. And then as of this morning, it became really bullish. And now here's the latest track. It has it developing just south of the Grand Cayman Islands. And you can see basically it goes nowhere for about 3 days. That's why these areas are going to be inundated with extremely heavy rainfall. So I know I have a lot of followers in Jamaica, so I wanted to give you guys a heads up. Your greatest impacts from this system are going to be today and tomorrow, Saturday and Sunday, with some very heavy rain moving into the island. And then by Monday, things are going to subside for you guys. But the real impacts are going to be towards the Cayman Islands, where you're going to get some extremely heavy rainfall amounts. 3 to 4 inches per hour is capability from this system, as it kind of just drifts. It doesn't really go anywhere. And I'll show you some amounts later on at the end of the video. It's pretty impressive. As this crosses over the Yucatan, this gets into the Gulf of Mexico by around day 4 or 5, and then potentially, as this very strong cold front comes into the U.S., we'll keep it safely away from Texas. And typically, the Euro model has been a little bit Western bias this year, so this one brings it a little bit further west than other models. But as of right now, by day 5 or 6, it'll bring it into the southeast coast of the U.S. with impacts into the southeast as well as into Florida. Here's the latest GFS ensemble member model. Kind of implies the same thing, but not nearly as west as the Euro model. It's more congealed towards the Florida region and then feeling more of the effects of that very strong cold front that won't reach the southeast. So that's why I do think this system will eventually get into the Gulf of Mexico, and this front kind of stalls right around here. So I'm not expecting it to go any further. And then by Wednesday, as this thing approaches, the front's going to subside a little bit, and then you have a kind of a warm front, and this what's going to draw it further north, and eventually probably out to sea. But here's the latest, if we kind of zoom in from the latest Euro model, and this kind of shows you all the different members projecting Invest 95L to become Tropical Storm Zeta later on this afternoon, getting its act together south of the Grand Cayman Islands, going into Cuba, having impacts for the tip of the Yucatan Peninsula into Cozumel, Playa del Carmen, into Cancun, and then eventually get into the Gulf of Mexico, where some of these are even taking it into a hurricane in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico, and then eventually feeling the effects of that trough swinging into parts of Louisiana, into parts of the southeast. So we'll kind of definitely fine tune the overall track, but this is the latest guidance from the Euro model. Now, let me show you kind of some of the initial intensities from this storm. This is from the great Tropical Tidbits website from Levi. And here's Invest 95L, pretty much implying a lot of its members on the first initial guidance. Remember, this storm hasn't even been named yet. Takes it into a tropical storm, if not a tropical storm, but there are even some members take it into a hurricane, if not one of them takes it even into a category 2 hurricane intensity. So this will be adjusted as this thing develops, but the first initial glance definitely has this system developing into a strong tropical storm, if not a hurricane, later on in the period. Now let's kind of zoom back and kind of take a look at the overall wave heights later on today for Saturday. So this is where the origination is going to take place later on today from Zeta, and there's going to be some very high waves coming in as this system develops. So we're talking 15-foot waves. So you guys places in Jamaica offshore, especially on the south side, be looking out for some definitely some choppy waters later on today, and especially into the Cayman Islands, obviously where that center of low pressure kind of gets its act together. So I want to give you a heads up that the waters are going to be extremely choppy later on this afternoon for those regions. But now let's take a look at the latest simulated water vapor for later on this afternoon. And you can tell by later on this afternoon, after you get some daytime heating, things start to really bubble up. And so that's where I think you're going to get some very heavy rain in Jamaica, into the Cayman Islands. This will spread into Cuba later on this afternoon. So this area will be inundated with some extremely heavy rainfall for today from this developing system. But if we extend it out to Sunday, more impacts come into play for these same areas as Zeta will get its act together, and you see it's a little bit more bullish now. So this is probably going to be a storm by Sunday. But on the south side, you still have those feeder bands as the storm kind of gets its act together. So I do expect impacts still into Jamaica through Sunday, and then eventually that'll subside for you guys, and Jamaica won't be feeling the effects as much after Sunday into Monday, and this will swing northward. But the Cayman Islands are going to be definitely inundated this weekend as this storm just kind of just drifts and just sits over your area and dumping some very heavy rainfall. So now let's kind of zoom in on kind of the middle of the road guidance. When I showed you the intensity guidance, I'm not showing you the most bullish model. I'm showing you kind of the most, the middle of the road. You saw the Euro model. You saw the GFS ensembles, kind of where their guidance is. Here's the latest Icon model. So it kind of shows the same thing. Right now, there's a low pressure, about 1,005 millibars, basically around the Cayman Islands, trying to get its act together. Here's by Tuesday, you can tell this system does not really go anywhere. So this is expected to be over the same general location for several days, dumping some extremely heavy rainfall for the Caribbean islands. And this will eventually skirt the Yucatan. This particular model actually has it going potentially inland, but I do think it's probably going to be somewhere around this area by later on Monday afternoon into Tuesday morning. But by Wednesday, this kind of really speeds up as it gets picked up by this trough. And this particular model has it going into the southeast coast of the U.S. as a 989 millibar. This is kind of like the middle of the road. So the intensity guidance is this is a first glance of this particular system, but it kind of shows you the general broad area of where this system could potentially go, because I do think Texas would be in the clear from this system. I can't 100% rule out Louisiana at this moment, but it's definitely looking less likely, but more likely into the southeast coast and especially into the panhandle of Florida as this system swings off and gets impacted by that trough of low pressure. But yeah, you can tell some extremely heavy rainfall over the next just 5 or 6 days from this system over the Caribbean, with upwards to 2 feet of rain closer to the Cayman Islands. So that's why I'm very concerned for you guys for extremely heavy rainfall, even in Jamaica on Saturday and Sunday. But more cautious, the higher impacts, with the extremely heavy rainfall, as this just kind of sits over that same area for about 3 days. 1 to 2 feet looks likely for you guys in the Cayman Islands into the southern shores of Cuba. But now let's kind of step back, because unfortunately, that might not be the only system that we might be dealing with over the next 2 weeks, because we look at the latest EPS control guidance of the vertical velocity index, we show a very bullish signal by the time November 1st rolls around. It's almost off the charts in the Caribbean of a lot of upward rising motion air. And that would continue into the first week of November. So the guidance showing another potential system possibly forming in the Caribbean around the first week of November. And the latest probability guidance has that on the table for the first week of November, setting up south of Jamaica. And even the latest GFS model kind of shows the same thing of the latest spaghetti model. So we're getting some congruent signals and vertical velocity index. So a lot of signals are implying that something else might be looking to form by the first week of November in this area. And the most likely track, for climatologically speaking, for November would be right around this area to form, going into potentially impacting Jamaica and into Cuba. So this is definitely something that I'm going to be looking out for. I kind of want to get a heads up for you guys that live in those areas of potentially even another system that we might have to be dealing with even after Zeta comes ashore by mid week. So definitely, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video. Leave your comments below. Don't forget to share with your friends on social media that may be impacted from this storm, and subscribe to my channel to catch me in the next video where I protect you before and after the storm.